Welcome to Insights, everyone. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you so much for joining us.
Drawing from some of my experiences during elections and the rather discouraging number of voters who have participated in elections across the country, relative, of course, to the number of registered voters during some of these elections, then you do know we have a massive challenge on our hands. It is particularly more disheartening when you put these figures against the total number of Nigerians estimated to be 18 and above, and then the reality of the rather low level of political participation in Nigeria stares you straight in the face, indicating a clear and present danger. Do we continue to practice democracy, or perhaps begin to tinker with giving legal backing to epistocracy? Well, I have a guest on hand who would provide some insight on this matter. Elizabeth is also ready to bring us an interesting conversation. Elizabeth?
All right, there's also a twist as we will be referencing the just concluded APC National Convention, but focusing on gender representation.
Very well then, let's begin the conversation. Over the course of our time here on Insights, we have delved into several discussions on the dangers posed by low level of political knowledge of citizens to legitimacy of representative democracy. I just say that that has the continued depletion in turnout at various elections amid changes in the political election structure and processes have hardly inspired real improvement in figures or a level of public participation. So maybe it's time to consider an alternative to democracy called epistocracy, where voting power is widespread, but votes are weighed and only the votes of more knowledgeable citizens count. I wonder if that makes some sense to you, but and I also do have a strong feeling that my guest may not agree as well with me. Is Dr. Stephen Iroro Izu. He has a PhD in political economy and development study. He's also a lecturer in the Department of Political Science and International Relations, University of Abuja. Welcome back to Insights, Doc. It's been a bit.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you very much. And we are counting down to next year. And of course, we all know that this year is highly political year. And we are going to see if democracy is still going to work.
Very true.
Or not.
Very true. I'm sure we'll find your views on this subject matter quite insightful. So I'll begin with my first question. I'm sure that over time you have heard arguments for and against democracy, and of course epistocracy as well as preferred forms of electing representative leaderships. Let me clarify these two terms for the sake of some of our viewers who may not be who may be unsure of what I am referring to. Democracy and epistocracy are theories which in practice and in theory both accept civic rights of all citizens, regardless of their competencies. But the difference is that in democracy, everybody, each and everyone, has political rights. For instance, the right to vote and to run for office. But in epistocracy, only politically knowledgeable individuals can possess these rights. In other words, only those politically conscious and knowledgeable, let's not forget to also add that those invested in using that knowledge can be allowed to exercise their political rights to representative leadership. Doc, the irony of our situation in Nigeria, is this. When you deprive the vast majority of people from their political rights, they are more likely to revolt against that policy. And there will be chaos. But in choosing to refrain from exercising that political right, are we not already edging towards a form of epistocracy where only those conscious of this political right exercise their rights?
Yeah, thank you very much once more for having me. Good day, Nigerians and viewers all across the world. Now, the idea of democracy has come a long way. And of course, since the ancient Greek era, when we had the direct democracy, where, of course, and we had just a few number of people in the city states at that time congregating in the city square, to directly discuss and, deconstruct the issues of their city states at that time. Up to when people like them, John Locke, wrote extensively on representative or liberal democracy, up until, 1917, 1949, when the socialist revolution took place in former Soviet Union and, of course, in China, which now brought about the idea of social democracy. So democracy has had a trajectory, but what we, in Nigeria and in Africa, opt for is this pro-liberal or pro-Western democracy, which is this multi-party democracy, whereby citizens are enfranchised, and allowed to exercise, their franchise, by choosing their leaders. However, there's a scholar, an American scholar, Gabriel Ahmad, who talked about the issue of political culture, in trying to define, and properly understand the phenomenon of democracy, the concept, the system of democracy. Because this idea of democracy being the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, according to Abraham Lincoln, has often come under controversy, under serious argumentation, because he will say government of the people, for the people, by the people, and of the people. Who are these people? Is it the mass of the illiterates or the mass of the literates?
Exactly.
Because the concept of the people has not really been understood. So when we say the government, democracy, government of the people, is it truly vox populi, vox dei? Is it the voice of the people, is the voice of God? Or we want to, toe the line of, Robert Michel, that Italian political thinker who talked about the iron law of oligarchy, that in every democracy, there is usually an oligarchy. That is not usually the voice of the majority that prevails. That is the voice of the minority who are organized, who are well organized, who are well sensitized, who are well conscientized, that actually prevail. That the majority.
Doug, you see these inconsistencies that you're beginning to throw up. It's part of the rationale for the agitation of an alternative form or an alternative to democracy. The inconsistencies, the limitations in democracy itself throws up the advocacy for an alternative to this system of representative democracy.
Exactly. Now, when Jason Brennan, one of the first advocate of epistocracy, came up with the idea of epistocracy, he was trying to emphasize this concept of politically literate individuals, to champion the cause of states, because the majority, as I was trying to point out, based on Robert Michel's perspective, the majority are always, unorganized, and most times they don't have this political literacy, political knowledge to be able to chart appropriate course, that democracy is meant to actually, actualize. Now, this is not the first time that we'll be looking at alternative to democracy. Robert Dahl, a scholar, also talk about, polyarchy. He talked about the idea of polyarchy as an alternative to democracy. Polyarchy is a government, that is based on responsiveness. responsiveness, not just on representation. It talked about the fact that we cannot just be banking on representation. What about the responsiveness of those in power? So epistocracy, I think, is actually an emerging idea, but I think it is an idea that is worth, advancing, because, it makes us to have, a polity that is characterized by people who have an idea, of what the choice they are making, the people that they are electing, and the consequences of their choices.
Doc, I also wanted your opinion on the contradiction that I highlighted at the beginning of my question to you, the first question that I had asked. When I talked about if the people are refrained from exercising their rights in democracy, they're likely to revolt. But where it does happen that they themselves are the one choosing not to participate in the process. Is that not somewhat of epistocracy? I mean, where we only have people perhaps who are knowledgeable and realize the importance of their vote participating in the electoral process, in the voting process?
Now, I think I'll try to answer that question by talking about the three types of political culture. Now, we have the subject political culture, the parochial political culture, and the participant political culture, according to Gabriel Ahmad. Now, the parochial political culture is a political culture that is made up of people, large mass of the people that are politically uneducated or politically illiterate, people who don't know, who don't have adequate political knowledge to make right choices. Now, the subject political culture is a political culture in which you have people who are knowledgeable, but because of their past negative experiences, of election rigging, they may not want to participate in the political process. Then the participant political culture is a political culture in which you have people who are politically educated or knowledgeable, and those who are self-motivated to participate in the political process. Now, if we're talking about disenfranchisement, of people, from participating in the political process, the truth is that when people are ignorant, when people are illiterate, when people, don't know, the consequences of the choices that they are making in an election, they are already disenfranchised. Whether they cast their vote or not, that is not the idea.
I mean, that is key. This issue you've just raised is key. Because if I do recall, one of I think is the former Prime Minister, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, who said something about political ignorance being the greatest enemy of democracy itself.
Yes, of course. Now, hello, can you hear me?
Clearly, please, go ahead, Doc.
Yeah, the truth is that, the danger of democracy, the danger of liberty is when you have the mass of the people who cannot play the role of watchdog, who cannot play the role of understanding, when democracy is being endangered by the actions of those whom they have elected or selected to rule. Now, it is not enough to have quantity of voters casting their votes ignorantly. What epistocracy is talking about is quality, the quality of voters that we have casting their votes in an election. Because for Nigeria, for instance, has majority of our citizens living in the rural areas. These people, many of them have not have not had adequate education, have not had adequate, formal education. Many of them have not even had adequate informal education, let alone political education. So the idea of saying that democracy must mean allowing the majority of the ignorant citizens to determine who becomes who in the polity, will keep making us to have, democratic or political retrogression or stagnation. We must begin to tilt, towards the dimension of having people who are well informed, who are well educated, who are well literate politically to make informed choices in terms of selecting, people who represent, Nigerian in different portfolios. Because if you bring politically illiterate people, to the foray to come and select those who will represent, who will lead us in different portfolio, it will mean that people are making uninformed choices, uninformed decisions, and that can only have adverse consequences.
Doc, I think I should make it clear at this point that I'm only playing the devil's advocate, and I'm not picking epistocracy over democracy, not necessarily. I mean, after all, epistocracy is utopia, even though it may be desirable. But what I am trying to do here is challenge Democrats to defend the principles and values, and some of course, the associated inconsistencies and limitations, in democracy. And there are a few of them, I can assure you. Errors, I mean, someone once said that errors do not cease to be errors simply because they are ratified into law. Or are they?
No, no. Now that errors or mistakes have lingered for a long time does not really make them, to be the norm. Now we know we're not trying to actually, suggest that democracy itself, should be discarded, wholesale. We are saying that there is a need for a modification of our approach to democracy, a modification to our approach to democracy. Now, I talked about polyarchy the first time. Since Robert Dahl brought up the idea of polyarchy, Democrats, have integrated, his arguments into the entire, entire trajectory of democracy, which is responsiveness. That is not enough to have representation, they will also have responsiveness. So when you have responsible leaders, you also have responsive, leaders. The same way, epistocracy. Epistocracy is not actually trying to negate democracy. It's trying to make democracy, better in the sense that it advocates, for, politically literate participation in politics. People who are politically literate to participate in the political process will yield more dividends of democracy to us than having people who are politically illiterate. And how can this be? This also boils down to the nature and character of our political parties. Nature and character of our political parties, because it is the political parties that should help, to galvanize citizens into this consciousness, of political literacy. When political parties are not able to bring about this engineering that will make citizens, a citizen to be interested in political information, political education, political literacy, then they are not playing their role very well. So the political parties in Nigeria, how far have they gone? It's not just to grab power, to say, come 2023, we grab power or we retain power, but how well have they been able to carry out large-scale political conscientization across Nigeria, political education, political sensitization, political orientation across Nigeria? That will mean that Nigerian electorates will be making informed choices, which is one of the pillars, one of the objectives of epistocracy, to ensure that decisions are made, by informed citizens, yes, so that the mandate given will truly be the mandate of the informed citizens, not just the mass of the citizens, but the mass of informed citizens.
I think that's the kernel of epistocracy. I do know that the buck does not stop with the political parties. I mean, the key link in the chain of the process, but I know there are other, institutions also responsible for sensitizing, educating the mass citizen. Doc, I'm sure you know of Jason Brunham's book, Against Democracy. You may have come across that book sometime in the past. The book seems to highlight the fact that political ignorance is the biggest challenge in democracy. That plays out here. I mean, it's all of the pictures that we've painted out here, playing out in Nigeria. It's not just enough for a person to cast their vote without that voter understanding the implications and significance of that particular vote. I talked about the former British Prime Minister, Winston Churchill, once saying something. He also did say that the best argument against democracy is a 5 minutes conversation with the average voter. I mean, whose fault is that? You've mentioned the political parties, you've talked about the masses. How much of a multidimensional problem is it for us here in Nigeria?
Now, the thing is that, if you look at the issue of when you say voter inducements, voters agreeing to sell their votes, for some paltry sum, or voters allowing themselves, to be overshadowed by these ethno-religious cards or sentiments, voters not looking out for meritocracy, but they allow themselves to be trapped in that circle of this mediocrity. Why? Because of ignorance. Now, if our voters are, our voters, our electorate, our citizens, if they are politically educated, if they are politically knowledgeable, what they will be asking after is, what is the ideology of this party? What is the manifesto of this party? What are the programs of these candidates? Not what can you give to me at this point in time in exchange for my PVC, as the case may be. So when voters, are not informed, are not knowledgeable, they are ignorant, that is that is already a danger, to democracy. Democracy cannot survive, in the place where you have large-scale illiteracy, because democracy itself, involves, fundamental human rights, involves, rule of law, involves, this idea of
yes, but even that where we are already, my question is, how do we get out of that? You have mentioned the political parties, and then I said I believe the buck does not stop with the political parties. Give me an idea of a structure that we can have in place, just so we begin to reverse that trend.
Now, according to the political parties, the truth is that the political parties, even though I have mentioned them, they also have their own interests. Their interest is to capture political power. So yes, the political parties will play a cardinal role. Now, but we also have, this idea of civil society organizations, the CSOs, the NGOs, these pro-election, civil, organizations that can help to also, push, the frontiers of political education, beyond where we are today. Now, the CSOs that are pro-elections, that are pro-politics, that actually want to see citizens, get involved in the political process, they can actually help, in ensuring that citizens, knowledge, of elections, of politics, get expanded. Then we have, we also have other groups, traditional institutions. We even have the politicians themselves, and we have other bodies, like ASU, for instance, the Academic Staff Union of University, can play a cardinal role in ensuring, because now you have most of the recs of the INEC resident electoral officers, they are professors, they are from universities.
Yes.
ASU should go beyond, just defending the interests of lecturers, to sensitizing the populace. They should have corporate social responsibility to Nigerians, to ensuring that Nigerians get educated politically, so that they can elect leaders who can understand the intrigues, the complexities, the intricacies, of the Nigerian society, because that will also help ASU on the long run.
Doc, the government of the people, by the people, for the people. That is perhaps the most popular, definition
Yeah.
of democracy, in the world today. Isn't it true that these traditional ideas of rule by the people may be dated, obsolete, or even dangerous in a world that is in urgent need of decision based on knowledge? Do we need to balance democracy with what has become known today as expert rule, that is the government of technocrats?
Yeah. Now, that was also why, somebody like Alexander the Pope, a scholar, defined democracy as, or captures democracy as the madness of the many for the betterment of the few. The madness of the many for the betterment of the few. That boils down to the idea, of having, the illiterate majority determining the fate of the polity. The truth is, our society need to gravitate from where it is now, being determined by large-scale illiterate majority, to people who are proficiently and sufficiently, equipped educationally, to make, the right decision in terms of who rules or who fills a particular position. And that itself, should also, begin from the political parties. Who are those leading the political parties? Who are those that are in key position in political parties? Because they will be the ones to give tickets to those who will contest in elections and so on and so forth. So Nigeria as a country and Africa as a continent must begin, to look at democracy, from a different perspective, by trying to modifying, this tenet of democracy. We are not saying that throw away democracy. What we're saying is this: let's modify democracy to accommodate, the scholarly minds, the experts, the technocrats, people who have accomplished, who are well accomplished in their areas of endeavor. Bring them in. People who are well grounded in their vocation. Bring them in, so as to ensure that, politics is not for the hooligans, it's not for the thugs, it's not for people who are low-minded, who cannot even determine, the destiny of Nigeria. On the long run, we'll see that this kind of modified version of democracy, which can come in form of epistocracy, which can come in form of any form of, modified version of democracy, will go a long way in correcting some anomaly we find in our elections, and we find in our politics.
Doc, just before you go, I'd like for you to very quickly give us a clearer picture of what you mean when you say modified democracy. But of course, you do know that one of the world's popular democratic quotes comes from Jackie Roosevelt. It says,
Yeah.
"If there were a nation of gods, it would govern itself democratically. A government so perfect, it's not suited to men." Apparently, a democracy has been, is recognized as the only acceptable form of government in our society. Here in Nigeria. I know it allows for all forms of freedoms. You've mentioned some of them, both in theory and in practice, and yet limits some of these core freedoms as well. Going forward, and in an attempt to embrace this modified model of democracy that you've talked about that best suits us as a nation, what structures can we put in place to conform to best practice democracy, which is to practice democracy?
Okay, now, what I would say is this. A few days ago, some time ago, I was talking to my students, and I told them that I have been teaching for some time now in the classroom, teaching political science courses, and so on and so forth. It is time for me, to identify with a political party, register with a political party, belong to a political party, and begin to contribute, my own knowledge, to the political engineering process. Because it's not enough for us to stand, on the trenches or on the fences again. Those of us who are educationally,
But the Constitution does
who
not
are
allow you to do
educated.
that as a civil servant. I mean, I mean, some have said that we may have shot ourselves in the foot by not allowing civil servants to be part of electioneering and politicking in Nigeria.
Anyway, it's true. If I want to go into active politics, I want to contest.
You may have to
for
resign
a
your position.
I will have to maybe take a leave of absence,
Exactly.
as a lecturer, or go on sabbatical, and so on and so forth. However, what I want to say is this: my point is that there are educated minds, a lot of educated minds out there, who do not participate in the process. If they continue to stay aloof, from politics, some of them believe that politics is a dirty game. The wrong minds. Now, Edmund Burke, former Prime Minister of Britain, said that if evil prevails when good men, do nothing. Now, if the educated minds stay aloof, of politics, stay away from politics, the politically uneducated will continue to determine the fate and the destiny of Nigeria. So I want to encourage, Nigerians from every vocation, from every profession, from every occupation, that are educated, to get involved in the political process. So with time, we'll begin to shift, the argument, shift the narrative, from this politics is the game limited for the hooligans, the tops, and so on and so forth. So we will not have politics is a game, for the civil, because the etymological meaning of politics itself means polite. It's from polite. Polite, the civilized, those, the creme de la creme of society, the best of the best of society. They are the ones that will get involved in the political process. So for us to be able to achieve this modified version of democracy, we must have people who are well trained in their field, whether they are medical doctors, whether they are journalists, whatever profession, provided they are well educated, to come into politics, and drive away these political illiterate who are corrupting, our democratic and political process in Nigeria.
Dr. Stephen Iroro Izu, political economist and development expert. I did anticipate that this conversation was going to be insightful, and you have delivered on that. Thank you so much for your thoughts on this issue.
Thank you very much. Grateful. My pleasure.
Girls and women have a right to engage in civil society, vote in elections, be elected to government offices, serve on boards, and make their voices heard in any process that will ultimately affect them, their families, and their communities. Investing in women's right to political participation is a necessary step to achieving global gender equality and democratic governance. Today, our focus is on women's representation, and we will be taking our cue from the just concluded APC National Convention. My guest, Kafila Ogwara, who joins us via Zoom. She is the Commissioner for Audit, Service Commission, Lagos State. Thank you so much, Ma, for joining us on Insight.
Yes, thank you very much.
All right, I would like to begin with your assessment of the just concluded APC National Convention. And in terms of gender representation, what will be your assessment?
Well, we thank God for the successful National Convention organized by the party at the national level. It was a success because most people were envisaging that there was going to be chaos, it was not going to be possible, that we won't be able to agree on the consensus and all that. But we thank God that everything went well and peacefully so too. Even in areas where we had people that still wanted to go all out to contest the election, the party allowed them and gave them the privilege that if they want to go out and contest and allow people to still vote for them, they still had the choice to do so. But a lot of consultations and agreements were still done, even on the field. And that goes to show the level of democracy in our party, the All Progressives Congress. And in terms of gender representation, I want to say clearly that, women, we are not so happy that we got very little percentage, but we still want to appreciate the All Progressives Congress for at least allowing more women to be at the national level, unlike the PDP, where we had just a woman in the whole of the executives at the national level. For the APC National Convention, it wasn't just about gender representation.
Okay.
The party also ensured that they gave the young people relevance. For example, the national woman leader that the APC has today, Betta Edu, is a 35-year-old woman who is a commissioner for health in her state, and also the chairman of Nigeria Health Commissioners Forum in Nigeria. And the deputy, of course, is a woman as well. And Dayo Israel, our own Dayo Israel from Lagos State, is about 36 years old as a national youth leader. And in the whole of the national executives that we have today at the national level, we have about 5 women, which is far, far better than what PDP gave Nigerian women. PDP gave us just the woman leader position in the, national executive of the People's Democratic Party. So we are very happy that the APC led administration gave women more opportunity, even though it's not up to the percentage that we are clamoring for.
All right,
But
I would like to comment there.
In the right direction.
All right, I would like to comment there. Talking about the ratio between the men and the women, the ratio is quite minimal. How do we boost this ratio? How do we strengthen women's participation in politics? Because they actually need to come in. We need to engage them.
Women are in, my sister. If you were at the Eagle Square yesterday, day before yesterday, yesterday morning, you will know that women are in. A lot of women are in politics already. If you look at the ratio of the men and the women that you saw on the field there, day before yesterday and yesterday morning, you'll find out that the women are far more than the men. You can even categorize it to 25 to 75% in terms of the ratio that women were more than the men on the field. Yet, when it comes to the benefits, you find out that the men want to take it all. This is the challenge we have always had. And at the National Assembly, you find out that 95.9% of men represent us at the National Assembly today, leaving the women with just about 4%, which is very, very ridiculous. And this 95.9% of men voted against all the bills that affect women directly, that can promote women directly. You find out that even as bad as it was, men that married Nigerian women, we are not given automatic nationality, unlike women, foreign women that marry Nigerian men. So this is really ridiculous. It's like, maybe they think women are not relevant. I don't know what it is. There's so much gross disrespect for women in Nigeria. And I, as a person, I tried personally to do some research about it. I met with a former Nigerian president. I won't mention his name. And I'm like, sir, when you were the president, why couldn't you help women? I know you were gender sensitive. Why couldn't you do more? At least at the National Assembly, let's have, more representation. Let's have a law that will encourage more women to be able to get the tickets and all that. And it's like, the perception is as if women, women sleep around or something like that. Something very, very ridiculous and very, very, not encouraging to hear at all. And I'm like, is it just that reason? Is that just the reason? Is she sleeping alone? Is it not a man that she's sleeping with? Is that, you find out that women were also denied 35% of the, appointed positions. We were denied the 35% of the affirmative action for elective positions as well, and of course, in the leadership of the party hierarchy. So these are the issues that we are still facing, and we are not relenting, we are not stopping. We are still going on. A lot of our women are still in front of the gate at the National Assembly, clamoring and, still trying to lobby that the National Assembly should have a rethink and see what they can do about all these bills.
All
So
right,
we are
now
still
let's
at
talk
it.
about 2023 general election, women's representation. What do you foresee?
We have very little hope because all the bills that we were looking up to that will give us better opportunities have been denied at the National Assembly.
Okay.
But we are still very hopeful. We believe in ourselves. Some of us don't believe that we want to wait for a certain percentage to be given to us before we contest elections or before we go all out to prove ourselves in our various local governments. There are a lot of eligible, capable, able, dependable, and very hardworking women out there, walking around all the world, speaking with people, and, lobbying party leaders to ensure that come 2022 for the primary, which is in about 3 months' time, they are able to get the party tickets. Women are already on the field doing their thing, working very, very hard to ensure that if candidates are to be picked democratically by merit and by whatever standard you want to look at it, these women will emerge as the party candidates in their various states. But we are still very hopeful, whether by consensus or by primary elections, a lot of women are already on the field working very hard to ensure that they get the tickets. So we are hopeful only on that basis that we do our work very, very hard, do what we need to do, and get our tickets by merit.
By merit. All right. Going forward, how do we promote women inclusion fully in politics?
Yeah, there are a lot of women fora, a lot of sensitization, a lot of mobilization has been ongoing for the past since we finished the last election. And more women are more aware now. They are more politically conscious. We all know that the most important thing for the world, not only Nigeria, is for us to have a rethink. We have to have a new mindset towards women because definitely when women are in elected positions or appointed positions, it means automatic empowerment for the women. And when women are empowered, it's automatic empowerment for the nation. We are talking about achieving global goals. We have they have on the global goals trying to eradicate hunger, trying to ensure that we have less poverty in the world. It is only when women are empowered that these things can be achieved. And the world leaders, and in particular now, Nigerian leaders, need to realize this. No amount of effort, no amount of whatever it is we are doing as a government and as a people can change the level of poverty in Nigeria, except women are generally empowered. The few that are striving, that are trying to be relevant and to ensure that they contribute their quota in terms of national development, most of these women are not being encouraged. So we are still appealing, we are still lobbying, we are still pleading with our men in authority that they should please take deliberate efforts, deliberate steps to encourage more women to be active in politics, to get nomination towards the 2022 primary elections that we are looking at in the next 3 months. More women should be encouraged. Even if the law is not being passed at the National Assembly, we have gender-sensitive men. We have women, we have men that know that indeed when women are empowered, the nation is empowered. So we are appealing to the conscience of men like this, that they should please, as party chairmen, as party leaders, as whatever category they fall into, as senators in the state, as governors, especially the governors, they have a say, they have the way. They should please ensure that they take deliberate steps and make deliberate efforts to ensure that more women get the party nomination for the primary election coming up in the next 3 months or thereabouts.
Okay, aside the family, the society play an important role in the development, in the political development of a woman, whether we like it or not. But now, there's also an issue, financial empowerment. How does this play in promoting a woman when it comes to politics? Because this is very
The issue
important.
of financial empowerment is a challenge that the girl child has had as a girl child. So, and these are the issues we have been trying to address. Because if you don't educate a girl child, she will be limited by the quality of education she will get. And when she's limited by the quality of education she will get, she will be limited by the quality of the employment she will get. And when you are limited by the kind of employment you get, automatically you'll be financially disenfranchised. And this has been, this problem, we look at it as if the girl child, education of the girl child is different from women empowerment. It's all interwoven. And this is a challenge that a lot of us have been trying to address in a lot of, women fora that we attend, a lot of developmental programs that we attend. So this is a problem, and we are still trying to see how we can solve it with adult education and all that. Because when the woman is not properly educated, she will have been disenfranchised from childhood. So, but a lot of us, a lot of women are still striving. They are working very, very hard with the limited education that they have. And those that are well educated as well, they are also still striving to be empowered politically in every way that you can, so that we can be financially empowered to be able to face this challenge headlong, so that more women will be adequately represented to represent the true interests of women. Because if we had more women in the National Assembly, I'm sure we wouldn't have had the problem that we faced with the passage of these bills that has left us disappointed, that has left us, discouraged in every way. Because when the elections are near, when it's time to vote, it is we women that will be all out there to cast our votes. Very few men participate in the election process. We have more women, over 80% of women participate more in the election process than the men. So why is it that when it's time for us to have the benefit and the burden must go together? When we bear the burden, why can't we benefit in the long run? So these are the questions begging for answers from our political leaders, from our colleagues all over the country, that they should please respect women and give women more opportunities politically and otherwise.
All right, my next question will seem a little bit personal. I'd like to find out from you, because I know you are a critical actor in the APC family. Now, are women really ready to take their place in politics?
Of course,
do you see? Okay, I need to include myself now. Do you see us really willing to take our place?
We are very, very ready. We are more than ready. We are very, very ready. And the men know that we are ready. So they just don't want to give us the opportunity. A lot of us are ready. I can tell you that. I am 100% sure about that. And a lot of women are trying, for instance, for the APC, the All Progressives Congress, the party, they try to ensure that women pay 50% for the nomination forms of the party, which is, is still okay, but it's not good enough. We want free forms for our women so that more women will be able to participate, because like we all know, women are not financially empowered. And all the figures that they threw around, we hear 20 million, 30 million for nomination form to be a governor, and, it's alarming. So not many women can, trade with that, because most of the time, these things are just a matter of taking a risk, and you are not sure you will even be able to get the tickets. So these are the issues and some of the problems that women face in terms of participating in politics. A lot of women are out there, but they have factors militating against them to really get to the forefront.
All right, Kafila Ogbara, Commissioner for Audit Service Commission, Lagos State. Thank you so much, Ma, for your thoughts on Insight this week.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
And just before we go, I'd like for us to ponder on the intricacies of consensus politics in a liberal democracy. This isn't just because of how the 2022 National Convention of the Governing All Progressive Congress turned out. By the way, 85% of positions in the National Working Committee of the party were filled by consensus, while the other 15% were contested and voted for. Basically, I think the issues are many, but perhaps we can begin by aligning the ideas of what a well-functioning liberal democracy are called. Is consensus designed to reach purely rational, definitive solutions to political issues? This is basically a teaser as I intend to throw up an insightful conversation on this issue in coming episodes of the program. For now, let me bring you some sights and sounds from the 2022 National Convention of the APC as captured by several of our reporters on the ground.
A lot is happening here inside the venue, which is the Eagle Square, and even outside. But what caught my attention is this camel rider who came all the way from Katsina to support and show solidarity for the APC party.
I want to show the APC members and everybody that I'm a bona fide APC member.
Yahya Hamisu, popularly known as Bakim Balarabe, says it took him 5 days to be in Abuja on camel for the love of his party. Switching off his phone was for security reasons.
They used to park. If they saw me, they used to park and ask me and even take picture with me.
If you think riding on a camel's back is easy, to me it wasn't easy. After so much persuasion, I got on the camel, but almost lost my breath. The entourage from Katsina thrilled people with their choreography.
It is 12 midnight, and for many, it is time to rest after a hard day's job. But for these party loyalists, the dawning of a new day can only become a reality when the storm is over. And then they retired to road layers and setback for the long wait amidst silence of the night for the long-awaited victory at the party's national convention.
That's why you see me around on the road. Yeah, since morning we are dancing, we are singing. Everybody do something lively to each other. I'm from Oyo State, and I love my party.
The story is the same during the day as massive supporters of APC trooped out to be part of the epoch-making event, the 2022 National Convention. Measures to beef up security, traffic and other arrangements were well coordinated to avoid breakdown of law and order during the exercise.
The security situation is quite commendable and the convention is well organized.
Everybody is moving, there's no fear of anything. Despite the challenges you have assessing to enter into these premises.
We are having a stress-free and a havoc-free National Convention 2022.
As the long work to achieving life for APC ends, celebrations begin with expectations for purposeful leadership for the party and enormous benefit to Nigerians.
And that's it on this episode of the program. Do join us same time next week for more on Insight. I'm Nnamdi Odipo.
And I'm Elizabeth Omori. Thank you so much for your time.
Ladies, women.